What if enlightenment didn't lift your life up, but actually broke it? Back in 1937, a calm government worker named Gop Krishna sat down for his usual morning meditation. Same position, same method, same time. He'd been doing this every day for 17 years. Nothing special, no drugs, no rituals, no guru chanting mantras. But that morning something snapped inside him, like a wire breaking in his spine. Suddenly, a rush of bright energy exploded inside his head. In an instant, the world he knew disappeared. He later said, "I wasn't just a tiny point of awareness inside my body anymore. I was a huge circle of consciousness." Sounds amazing, right? It wasn't. When he came back to normal, the nightmare began. His feelings vanished. Eating made him sick. Sleep stopped coming. His body felt like it was burning with molten metal flowing through his veins. For 12 years, he lived a private hell no one could see or understand. This isn't a nice story about mystical light or cosmic love. This is what happens when enlightenment hits you before you're ready. Today, enlightenment is just another product you can buy. It's been rebranded and packaged to fit into busy modern lives. You don't have to climb a mountain or face deep fears anymore. Now, all you need is a weekend retreat, some upbeat music, and someone to activate your energy with a soft touch and a confident smile. Sounds neat, easy, and safe. But the truth behind this shiny image is messier, riskier, and scarier than anyone selling it wants to admit. Sacred teachings that used to be shared with care and respect are now available to anyone with internet and a credit card. Practices that took years of training, like Kundalini yoga, deep breathing, or advanced meditation, are sold like quick fixes. Buy now, transform instantly. Risks, preparation, consequences, nobody wants to talk about those. And if things go wrong, it's your fault. The real problem isn't people wanting to grow spiritually. It's that the systems we've made to deliver that growth are shortcuts without safety checks. It's like trying to learn parachuting from a YouTube video and then jumping without a parachute. You might survive, but you probably won't be ready, and some don't survive at all. Gopi Krishna's story isn't unique. It's just one of the few that got told. His experience is a warning missing from modern spirituality. He wasn't chasing a high or fireworks. He was just meditating, and his nervous system couldn't handle the power that woke up inside him. That same power is now marketed as a lifestyle upgrade. Beginner Kundalini classes, healing sessions that claim to activate your Shakti energy. Energy work done by people with no understanding of trauma, emotional limits, or how to help you integrate it all. When people break down, panic, dissociate, shut down, they're told they're resisting, or that their ego is blocking them, or that if they just surrender more, they'll find the light. We've been trained to expect instant results, 30-day enlightenment, cosmic downloads with no pain. We want the vision without the work, the power without the cleaning, but consciousness doesn't work on our schedule. The divine doesn't care how many hours you spend on meditation apps, or how many yoga pants you own. True transformation doesn't happen at retreats. It happens deep in your nervous system, and that system has limits. Ancient teachers knew this. They didn't just hand you a mantra and tell you to merge with the universe. They watched you carefully, tested you, broke down your ego before giving you real tools, because they knew awakening isn't just a feeling, it's a total rewiring of your whole self. If your system isn't ready, the light you chase will burn you from the inside out. You can't chase the infinite without first preparing the container that holds it. This isn't mystical talk, it's just common sense. But in a culture where spirituality is a product to sell, common sense gets left behind. People rush to open doors they don't know how to close, following influencers who mistake confidence for real skill. And once the damage is done, there's rarely any support to help fix it. The student suffers, the teacher disappears, and the cycle goes on. This isn't a warning against awakening. It's a warning against rushing. Depth takes time. Preparation isn't optional. Consciousness will rise when it's ready, and when it does, being ready won't matter. That's why true spiritual traditions spend so much time preparing students, not to keep them out, but to keep them safe. They knew the cost of rushing toward the light without building the strength to handle it. That's why ancient teachers compared spiritual energy to fire, lightning, or floods. It wasn't just poetic, it was a physical fact. True awakening is electricity moving through the delicate wiring of your body, your nervous system. And if those wires aren't ready, if your body isn't strong enough, if your emotions and mind aren't clear, what should be enlightenment becomes destruction. Gop Krishna wasn't reckless or testing limits. He was a disciplined meditator following the same routine for nearly 20 years. But on the day his Kundalini energy woke up, his whole system short-circuited. From that moment, nothing worked right. He couldn't sleep or eat. He lost his emotional connection to his family. His body felt like it was on fire. This wasn't a metaphor, it was a biological trauma caused by a spiritual force. This is what happens when a fragile body is suddenly hit with energy it wasn't made to handle. Modern spirituality doesn't talk about the body because it's not easy to sell. It's simpler to sell the light than the wiring. You hear a lot about consciousness, higher states, vibrations, dimensions, but rarely about the body carrying you through it all. Your nerves, hormones, brain chemistry. These aren't extras, they're the foundation. When you ignore them and push powerful energy through unprepared pathways, your system reacts like any overloaded circuit. It burns out. Ancient sages didn't rush into awakening. They spent years building physical strength, cleansing their organs, refining their diet, and mastering breath and posture. Why? Because the body isn't separate from consciousness, it's the container. And if that container breaks, the experience turns into suffering, not freedom. But that's not what most modern spiritual teachings tell you. Instead, your nervous system gets treated like an annoying afterthought. If you react badly, you're told to rise above it. If you feel fear, they say it's just resistance. If your mind falls apart, it's called ego death. But what if none of that is true? What if your body is just saying, this is too much, I'm not ready? People often see Kundalini as a spiritual prize. But when it fires up without preparation, it's not beautiful, it's scary. Your sense of self falls apart, your thoughts race, your perception shatters. It's like being connected to a live wire with no breaker. Some never recover, others spend years putting themselves back together, and almost no one talks about it. Because in a culture obsessed with progress, breaking down is seen as failure, not a warning. What if we actually listened to our bodies instead of ignoring them? What if shaking, anxiety, or insomnia weren't signs that you're almost there, but signals your system is overloaded? The nervous system doesn't lie. It doesn't care about your spiritual goals or how many workshops you've taken. It only cares about feeling safe. And when it doesn't, it shuts down your energy, your focus, your confidence, your joy, until you listen. That's why preparation matters. Without it, you don't meet the divine. You crash into it. No matter how much you read or how sincere you are, your biology decides how much power you can handle. You wouldn't run high-voltage electricity through a thin wire and expect it not to melt. So why expect your fragile, stressed-out nervous system to carry infinite consciousness without breaking? This isn't fear, it's honesty. If the foundation isn't ready, the light becomes a wrecking ball. Some romanticize breaking through, but few talk about the work it takes to rebuild. Gop Krishna survived, but it took him over 10 years to stabilize, and he spent the rest of his life warning others not to follow his path. Not because awakening is bad, but because it has to come with preparation. It's not about wanting it or being ambitious, it's about being ready. Your nervous system isn't your enemy, it's your protector. If it tells you to slow down, ground yourself, breathe, and integrate, it's not blocking you, it's keeping you safe. You weren't made to carry lightning on demand. But with patience, care, and solid groundwork, you can become the vessel that holds it without breaking. When people collapse during spiritual practice, panic attacks, dissociation, insomnia, feeling numb, they're rarely seen as system failures. Instead, it's blamed on personal weakness. You're resisting. It's just your ego dying. These ideas get passed off as wisdom, but they're really manipulation. Worse, many teachers don't take responsibility for what they've caused. The student is left alone and exploited. Your suffering isn't a sign of overload. It's twisted into proof that you're doing it wrong, not spiritual enough, or unworthy. This is spiritual abuse, and it happens more often than people admit. When your body screams and your mind falls apart, the last thing you need to hear is that your pain means you're making progress. But that's exactly what the modern spiritual world says. The result? People go quiet, hide their symptoms, push harder, burn out, or break down completely, thinking it's their fault they can't handle the light. Gop Krishna didn't collapse because he lacked faith or purity. He was disciplined and sincere. But none of that mattered when his system wasn't ready for what hit him. And when it happened, there was no support, no guidance, no help to make sense of it. He was a pioneer in silence, left alone with an experience that was both a gift and a curse. The same thing happens today, but now people are told it's all part of the plan. The spiritual industry has gotten very good at blaming the student. Teachers promise cosmic transformation without proper checks or care. When students crash, the blame quietly shifts back to them. Your soul wanted this. Growth hurts. Don't question it. These words are poison wrapped in kindness. They make it impossible to tell when something is really wrong. They steal your right to say, "This doesn't feel right," without being called immature or resistant. Over time, this creates a culture where pain is praised, teachers are untouchable, and silence is survival. This isn't how real spiritual teaching works. True traditions don't ignore suffering, they understand it. There are steps, supports, and context. If someone starts to break down, they're helped, not shamed, grounded, not pushed further. Pain isn't proof of awakening. It's a sign to slow down, change direction, or stop. True teachers don't push you off a cliff and call it freedom. They walk beside you and watch your steps. The problem today is the spiritual scene attracts marketers, not mystics. Marketers don't hold your hand in the dark. They just want you to believe you're already in the light. Even if you're falling apart, even if your body screams, even if your mind breaks, they hide the harm to protect their brand. They tell you to keep going, and the scared student keeps pushing, afraid to miss out. Sometimes this goes past the point of no return. We create a system where intensity is confused for depth. Breakdowns are sold as breakthroughs, and the human cost of forced awakening is hidden behind spiritual slogans. But the truth is simple. If you're suffering, something needs your attention, not denial. If you're falling apart, it's not because you failed the practice. It's because the practice failed to meet you where you are. And if your teacher can't see that, they're not a guide, they're a danger. You have the right to question what you're told. You have the right to pause, step back, and say no. Awakening isn't about giving up control, it's about clarity. And clarity starts when you stop mixing pain with progress and start listening to your body honestly and openly. Because spiritual growth isn't about how much light you chase, but how much truth you can handle. Even when that truth is, "This is hurting me." Long before spirituality became a business, it was a serious practice. Not a trend, not easy to access, and definitely not for everyone. And that wasn't snobbiness. It was protection. In Tibetan Buddhism, for example, you couldn't even approach the secret teachings until you'd spent years building a strong foundation. cleansing the body, studying philosophy, serving others, training the mind. You had to prove you were stable, sincere, and balanced before anyone gave you the real tools. The most powerful practices were kept hidden, not to stop people from awakening, but to protect students from forces they weren't ready to handle. But in the West, we tore down those gates and started selling what was never meant to be casual. Now you can take a weekend breathwork class that used to be reserved for adepts who trained for years. You can scroll through social media and find videos of practices that were once secret and sacred, only shared after serious testing. We erased the path and replaced it with shortcuts, convincing people that deep work isn't necessary and good intentions are enough. But there's a reason ancient teachers made you wait. There's a reason they made you work hard. It wasn't about loyalty, it was about building your strength. Gop Krishna's awakening shows exactly why that preparation mattered. He wasn't careless or chasing thrills. He was steady, quiet, and disciplined, but he lacked structure and guidance. His awakening wasn't gentle, it was sudden and intense. And the result? 12 years of non-stop inner chaos. Traditional systems would have seen the warning signs, slowed things down, built the foundation first. But he didn't have that, and most people today don't either. We're facing powerful forces without a map, without a compass, without knowing how deep it goes. People think they can skip preparation because they've read a few books or had some transformative moments. But there's a huge difference between just glimpsing the truth and actually living it, between visiting a state and making it your home. The space between those points is exactly what traditional paths were built for. They weren't slow just to be slow. They were slow because that's what real integration and stability need. We romanticize speed, thinking fast results mean we're on the right path. But with awakening, fast doesn't mean real. Fast often means shaky and unstable. The bigger the force, the stronger the foundation has to be. You don't build a skyscraper on quicksand. You drive deep piles into solid ground and reinforce everything. The higher you build, the stronger your base must be. It's the same with consciousness. If you want to expand and rise, you better make sure your container can handle the weight. Here's the part nobody likes to hear. Preparation isn't glamorous. It's repetitive, slow, and humbling. It asks you to clean house inside before inviting anything beyond yourself. And that's not sexy. It doesn't sell. That's why modern spiritual culture often ignores it. Nobody wants to slow down when everyone's chasing the next big glow. But without that groundwork, the glow won't last. Or worse, it'll turn against you. You can't just merge with the divine randomly and expect everything to go smoothly. Awakening without structure is like fire without a fireplace. It spreads, consumes, and destroys. The ancients didn't teach slowly to hide the truth. They taught slowly because they knew raw power doesn't light the way. It burns everything down. That part of the path has been forgotten, erased, or ignored. The part that values stability over showmanship, steady process over flashy performance. It's not glamorous, but it's real. And when the glow fades, that's what you'll have if you bothered to build a solid foundation. Because when consciousness finally expands, it won't ask how badly you wanted it. It will ask how well you prepared. We live in a culture obsessed with shortcuts. Everything is designed to be faster, easier, more efficient. We've been trained to think that if something takes time, it's wrong. If it takes effort, it's old-fashioned. So it's no surprise that mindset has crept into spirituality too. Enlightenment, once the goal of a lifetime or many lifetimes, is now sold as a weekend upgrade, a quick download, a brand. Behind all those glossy Instagram videos and influencer retreats lies a truth no one wants to face. Real awakening doesn't care about your schedule, your budget, or your need to feel special. It happens at its own pace, and when you force it, it fights back. Today, spirituality is just another part of the self-help industry, marketed with the same tricks. Urgency, quick transformation, testimonials, before and after stories. But instead of weight loss or money, it's soul expansion, DNA activation, divine embodiment. Different words, same pitch. You're broken. This product will fix you. Act now. Limited time offer. The problem? Unlike a bad diet plan or useless supplement, jumping into certain spiritual practices without care can cause real psychological damage. Because you're not just playing with ideas, you're playing with energy, perception, identity. And when those shift without preparation, people don't just get confused, they fall apart. Right now, there are people being told they're ready for practices once saved for monks who spent decades in isolation, breathwork that changes brain chemistry, energy work that wakes old traumas, guided meditations that bring visions and voices they don't know how to handle. But there's no warning, no guidance, just a sales funnel and a smiling teacher saying, "This is what awakening feels like," even as your nervous system spirals and your relationships crumble. In today's spiritual marketplace, it's not about balance or safety, it's about the show. The bigger the experience, the easier it sells. Shaking, crying, screaming during a session means it's working. Seeing snakes or ancestors, you're leveling up. A total emotional breakdown? Congrats, you unlocked a deep purge. But no one asks what happens after. What happens when you get home, when the high fades and all you have left is the mess inside? Without the tools to manage it, this obsession with intensity has built a culture where silent, steady progress is ignored, and only wild, dramatic experiences count, where someone quietly meditating for years is overlooked. But someone who had a sudden Kundalini rush last weekend is hailed as awakened. Drama isn't depth. Most of the time, it's just emotional chaos dressed up in spiritual words. When we chase those highs, we forget the real work, becoming balanced, whole people who can actually handle the consciousness we're opening to. There's also a darker side to this. Some teachers build their fame on big dramatic breakthroughs and have a reason to keep you unstable. If you're always searching, always opening, always needing help, they always have another class or session to sell. And when you fall apart and it doesn't work, it's never the method's fault. It's always you. You didn't trust enough. You didn't go deep enough. You weren't ready. But the truth is, you were never meant to go that deep that fast. Real awakening is quiet. It's often uncomfortable and not glamorous. It asks you to face the parts of yourself that don't look good, the selfishness, the fear, the judgment, the pain, and it doesn't offer a way out. It asks you to integrate those parts slowly and honestly, again and again. No fireworks, no dramatic success stories, just the steady growth of presence. But that doesn't sell, and it doesn't go viral, so the market gives us spectacle instead and calls it transcendence. If your spiritual journey has been quiet and slow, no, that doesn't mean it's any less real. If your growth took years and didn't fit into neat milestones, it doesn't mean you're behind. You're probably doing it right because consciousness doesn't need drama to grow. It just needs space to breathe, to settle, to be held by a nervous system that's not always pushed past its limits. We don't need more spiritual performers. We need more grounded practitioners, people who understand that the deepest changes show up quietly in how you handle pain, discomfort, and how you show up when no one's watching. That kind of awakening lasts. It doesn't burn out. Intensity grabs attention. It makes you think something big is happening because your body shakes, your emotions feel raw, or your mind feels like it's falling apart. We're taught to believe that the more intense the experience, the more powerful the awakening. But that's a lie, a dangerous lie, because not every fire is sacred, some just burn. In the modern spiritual scene, emotional overload is often mistaken for growth. Crying in a retreat is seen as progress. Screaming during breathwork is sold as release. Seeing visions during plant medicine ceremonies is proof of divine connection. But rarely does anyone ask what's really going on underneath. Is the person healing or just reliving old pain? Are they truly growing or falling apart? Many breakthroughs are really just nervous system overload. People pushed beyond their limits without safety or support. But now, in the age of quick spirituality, those breakdowns are rebranded as enlightenment. People are praised for falling apart in public and told to push harder and open more. But opening without safety often re-traumatizes the body. And yet, intensity sells. Teachers get famous for dramatic workshops. Participants seek validation in how much they cry, scream, or see. We've made showing off your healing more important than the slow, quiet work of actually integrating it. Gop Krishna's experience was so intense, his system couldn't handle it. But he didn't brag about it. He shared it as a warning. What happens when the spiritual energy is too strong for the body? If that happened today, it'd probably be turned into a viral highlight, sold as proof of awakening, promoting the reckless style that caused the problem in the first place. True transformation often looks like nothing on the outside. It's subtle and slow. It's your breath slowing when you used to panic. It's pausing before you react. It's sitting with discomfort without shrinking away. But none of that makes a good photo or social media post. So we ignore it and chase spectacle instead. Spectacle is not sustainable. It's a spike, not a shift. When your nervous system is always chasing the next big rush, it forgets how to rest and how to feel safe. And without safety, healing can't happen. Growth can't happen when you're always overstimulated. Real spiritual depth comes when you learn to hold the silence, not just survive the storm. There's a kind of violence in pushing people to their limits and calling it healing. Sometimes teachers believe they're helping because that's what they were told. But belief isn't enough. Training matters. Ethics matter. Knowing about trauma matters. Without those things, it's just one blind person leading another through dangerous ground that requires skill, care, and responsibility. If your spiritual practice leaves you feeling broken and unsupported, that's not awakening, it's harm. If your teacher pushes intensity without teaching you how to stabilize, they're not guiding you, they're provoking you. And if your growth is only about the intensity of your experiences, you're not evolving, you're running away. You don't have to be broken to be transformed. You don't have to be pushed to the edge to meet the divine. Sometimes the most sacred work happens in the quiet moments you were told to ignore. Sometimes the deepest healing looks like steady breathing, a soft heart, a nervous system finally learning to feel safe again. That's not performance, that's power. Here's a quiet truth you rarely hear in modern spiritual spaces. The real work is boring, not flashy, not dramatic. And it doesn't look good on camera. It's repetitive, personal, and honest. It's showing up every day with humility and building the inner strength to hold what you're asking for. Because light isn't the goal. Light is the test. And if your foundation isn't strong, that light will show every crack. We're often focused on going beyond ourselves, beyond our bodies, our thoughts, and our pain. But what if true spirituality isn't about escaping, but about facing what you've been avoiding? Your trauma, your struggles, your everyday emotions. You can't run from being human and expect to find something divine. You have to bring both your pain and your spirit together. It's not about how far you can travel spiritually or how well you can connect with higher beings. What really matters is your ability to sit with what's real. The pain, the confusion, the frustration, and stay present without running away, without shutting down, or pretending everything is part of some divine plan you don't fully get. Gopi Krishna didn't fail because he wasn't spiritual enough. He suffered because his mind and body weren't ready to handle the intense energy inside him. He was open, devoted, sincere, but lacked the foundation to hold it all. And no one warned him that this foundation was important. No one told him that what he was chasing could break him just as easily as it could lift him up. He learned that the hard way, by surviving. We can learn from him without going through the same pain. Start with your emotions, not your chakras or energy fields. Notice how fast you get annoyed, how you deal with boredom, rejection, or insecurity. That's where your real training happens. That's where you build strength, because when your awareness grows, it doesn't just make your peace bigger, it also makes your unhealed pain louder. And if you're not ready to handle that pain, it will overwhelm you, not because you're weak, but because it's too much too soon. Real preparation means learning to feel your emotions without losing control, learning to pause before reacting, learning to calm your breath when life feels chaotic. That's what true spiritual skill looks like, not floating above the ground or chanting ancient words. The basics aren't beneath you. They're the foundation. They're what you come back to when things get tough. And they will if you're doing this work. The best teachers aren't the ones promising flashy experiences. They're the ones asking if your life is steady, if you've healed enough to open up safely, if your body can handle what your mind wants. They care more about your healing than your Instagram post. They won't rush you just to fill a class. They help you build slowly, carefully, because they know what happens if you collapse. You can build a spiritual identity fast, but real spiritual strength takes time. It takes discipline, honesty, and showing up even when it's hard and no one's watching. That's how you become a true vessel, not by chasing awakening, but by preparing for it, if and when it comes. And here's the irony. When you build that vessel, you stop chasing. You don't need big experiences to feel whole. You stop looking for signs and start listening to your life. And in that quiet space, something changes. It's not a big breakthrough or explosion of light. It's a calm knowing that you're no longer running from yourself. You're ready to welcome what you once desperately sought. People often think enlightenment is a fancy upgrade, something you choose when you're ready. But the truth no one talks about is that it often comes uninvited, not gently, but like a shock. Not a gift, but a breakdown. And the hardest truth is this: you didn't ask for it. You didn't agree to it. The shifts in how you see things, the feeling that your identity is falling apart, the disconnect from your old life. You didn't sign up for that. You just wanted peace, maybe some clarity, maybe a little growth. But not this. You were told awakening would feel like coming home, full of light and love. But for many, it starts with loss. Loss of certainty, of identity, of what once grounded you. You start feeling like a stranger in your own life. The food you loved doesn't taste right. The relationships that once supported you feel empty. And worst of all, you can't explain it. You don't have the words because language is made for everyday reality, not for the collapse of self. So you stay quiet, you nod, you smile, and suffer alone. While everyone talks about higher frequencies, you wonder if you're losing your mind. Gop Krishna's story isn't unique, it's just not often shared. He went through 12 years of spiritual crisis, physical pain, emotional breakdown, and mental fragmentation. He wasn't rising, he was surviving. And yet today, people treat the same energy that almost destroyed him, Kundalini, as a fun weekend activity. That's not just careless, it's dangerous because it ignores the truth that awakening isn't always a gift. Sometimes it's a crisis, sometimes it breaks your ability to function. That's not enlightenment, that's trauma. Right now, there are thousands of people feeling symptoms they don't understand. Racing heartbeats, bursts of energy, feeling detached from their bodies, being told it's a blessing, proof they've been chosen. But what if it's just overload? What if their nervous systems are in shock, their minds trying to reset without help? What if we stopped calling this spiritual and started seeing it as a call for care, for support, for consent? That's the part we're missing. Consent. Not just physical consent, but emotional and energetic consent. Did you agree to this? Did you feel safe? Were you ready? Or did some teacher or retreat push you past your limits in the name of growth? Because if it didn't happen on your terms, it's not awakening, it's intrusion. We need to ask honest questions, not, how do I light up, but, is my system ready for more truth? Not, how do I get enlightened faster, but, what parts of me need healing before I'm safe to grow? These aren't glamorous questions, but they're real. They respect your process, and that matters more than any mystical state you might want. You're not a switch to flip on or off. You're not a machine to upgrade. You're a complex, fragile, powerful human whose awareness grows best when it's ready, not when it's forced. If we don't start taking awakening seriously, we'll keep mixing up people going through a crisis with those who are truly on the path. We'll keep hurting people in the name of light. If your spiritual experiences have left you feeling broken or scattered, you're not weak, you're not failing, and you're not resisting the light. You're just facing something way too big, way too fast, and you have every right to say no. You have the right to slow down. You have the right to set limits on your own growth. This isn't going backward, it's wisdom. You don't owe anyone your breakdown just because they say it's part of the journey. You don't owe trust to any teacher who says your pain means you're making progress. And you don't owe consent to a process that doesn't respect whether you're ready. The New Age world is full of voices pushing you forward. What you really need is someone telling you it's okay to pause, to ground yourself, to just breathe. If no one's told you that yet, let me be the first. You're not behind. You're not broken. You don't have to rush to become something else. You have the right to awaken gently with care on your own terms. That's your power. This isn't about avoiding growth, it's about honoring it. Stop treating awakening like a finish line. It's really about reshaping your whole self. If you want more awareness, you have to build a strong foundation first. That means taking care of the parts of you that are tired, hurt, or fragile. You have to understand that awareness isn't just light, it's pressure. It pushes on every weak spot, not to punish you, but to show what's unstable. Is your nervous system strong enough to handle that pressure? Can your emotions stay open when the truth comes faster than you can handle? That's why old spiritual traditions were so strict, not to stop people, but because they respected the power of awakening. They knew what it could do to an unprepared mind. For example, in Tibetan Buddhism, students didn't get the secret teachings until they spent years building a solid base, training their bodies, minds, and hearts through discipline and service. Why? Because you don't pour molten gold into a cracked pot. You fix the pot first. You train your body to handle energy, your heart to face intensity, your mind to question without breaking. Now compare that to today's scene. Weekend retreats promising instant activations, quick initiations, breathwork sold like entertainment. We treat spirituality like fast food. Then when people fall apart, we say they failed. No, they never got the instructions. They were told to dive into deep water without learning how to swim. And instead of support, the community often blames them, saying their trauma is their fault. Their pain is resistance, they just need to surrender more. That's not awakening, that's abuse. The work ahead is simple, but not easy. It starts by letting go of chasing spiritual highs. Awakening isn't about constant happiness, it's about clarity. It means your life gets more real, not more dreamy. It means you feel more, not less. It means facing the parts of yourself the light reveals. Not in a rush, but honestly. You're not here to become someone else. You're here to become so fully yourself that nothing fake can survive. This path isn't drama, it's depth. It's not about reaching the stars, it's about standing your ground as the stars pass by. Enlightenment isn't a prize to win, it's a responsibility. a responsibility you earn through care, discipline, and deep listening. Listening when your body says, slow down, when your heart says, not yet, when your gut says, this teacher isn't right for me. Those moments of listening are the real path. They're not fireworks, visions, or altered states. You weren't made to be forced open. You were made to be ready when the door opens. That readiness is your choice, your boundary, your dignity. Anyone or anything that tries to push you past it, no matter how spiritual it sounds, is not your path. It's a red flag. If you've gone through something like Gop Krishna's story, where awakening came like a storm and left you lost, you're not alone. You're not broken. You're not less spiritual. You're someone who got a truth too big for you to handle yet. That means you need care. Care isn't the opposite of awakening. It's the foundation. Remember, your pace is sacred, your process is valid, and your path doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Real transformation happens slowly, quietly, and often invisibly, until one day you realize you've become someone who can hold the light without burning.